everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here for episode 7. Today, we're diving into something that almost everyone experiences at some point in their life: the psychology of change. Moving to a new place can be exciting, but can also be overwhelming. At first, everything feels unfamiliar. The streets look different, the language or accents might change, and even simpler routines like where you get your coffee or how you spend your afternoons can suddenly feel uncertain. And when horses are part of your life, that change becomes even more noticeable. The horses you ride might feel completely different. The way people train, the expectations in lessons, and even the environment around you, everything can shift. But change doesn't only affect humans. Horses experience change too, especially when they move to new homes or get new owners. In many ways, the experience of change mirrors our own more than we might realize. So today we're going to explore how change affects both horses and humans, the different types of horses you may encounter around the world, and what psychology tells us about adapting new environments. And along the way, we'll also look at how horses can actually help us navigate change better. Let's start with something simple. Why is change so difficult? As humans, our brains are wired to prefer familiarity. We like routines, we like knowing what to expect. Familiar environments give us a sense of control and safety. When something changes, especially something big like moving to a new country, our brains doesn't immediately see it as exciting. Instead, it often sees it as a potential threat. This is where a stress response comes in, the fight, flight, or freeze response. Even if there's no real danger, the brain reacts to uncertainty by becoming more alert. You might notice this in small ways, like feeling more tired than usual, overthinking simple decisions, becoming more sensitive or emotional, and wanting to retreat to things that feel familiar. All of this is completely normal. It's just your brain trying to protect you while it figures out the new environments. Now here's where it gets interesting. Horses experience something very similar. Horses are prey animals, which means their survival depends on being highly aware of their surroundings. They rely heavily on routine and consistency to feel safe. When a horse changes owners, barns, or even riders, the entire world shifts overnight. The people they trusted are gone, the routines they understood disappear, even the smells, sounds, and the layout of the environment are different. Some horses adapt quickly. They're naturally more confident or curious, but others may be anxious, withdrawn, or overly reactive. You might see this as spooking at things they previously ignored, becoming tense or resistant under the saddle, being hesitant or unsure in new situations. And just like us, they're not being difficult. It's simply trying to answer one important question: is this new place safe? Understanding this can completely change how we approach both horses and ourselves during times of transition. Now let's talk about something many riders notice when they move between countries. Horses themselves can feel very different. At first, this can be surprising, even frustrating. You might get on a horse and think, why does this feel so different from what I'm used to? But there's a reason for that. Different regions of the world breed horses for different purposes. Climate, terrain, and cultural transitions all play a role of shaping the types of horses you'll find. For example, in some places you'll find powerful sport horses bred for jumping or dressage, horses that are expressive, energetic, and trained to respond to very precise aids. In other regions, you might encounter endurance horses, lighter, more economical in movement, built for long distances and stamina. Some horses are incredibly sensitive, reacting to the smallest shift in your body. Others are more steady and require clearer, stronger cues. Training styles also vary widely. In some equestrian cultures, riders are taught to use very subtle aids from the beginning. In others, horses are trained with more direct or stronger signals. So when you step into a new riding environment, it can feel like you suddenly have to relearn things you thought you already understood, and that can be uncomfortable. You might question your ability, you might feel like you've taken a step backwards, but here's the most important thing to remember. It's not that you become a worse rider, you're simply learning a new language. Because riding isn't communication, and just like spoken languages, different places have different dialects. Learning to ride different horses, especially in new environments, can actually make you a more adaptable and skilled rider. You start to adjust your timing, refine your feel, and become more aware of how your body communicates. Over time, you don't just learn how to ride one type of horse, you learn to understand horses more deeply. Now let's connect this to psychology. One concept that explains a lot that we experience during big transition is cultural shock. Cultural shock doesn't just happen when moving countries. It can happen anytime you enter new environments with unfamiliar expectations. It often comes in stages: the honeymoon phase, the frustration phase, the adjustment phase, and the adaptation phase. The honeymoon phase, everything feels exciting and new. The frustration phase, differences become challenging or overwhelming. The adjustment phase, things start feel more manageable. And the adaptation phase, the new environment begins to feel normal. If you ever moved or changed barns, you probably experienced some version of this. At first, you might feel excited, then things might feel confusing or frustrating, and eventually you start to find your rhythm again. Another important concept is adaptation. The brain is incredibly flexible. Over time, it learns to recognize patterns in new environments. What once felt unfamiliar slowly becomes routine. And this is where predictability becomes so important. Research shows that both humans and animals feel less anxious when they can predict what's going to happen next. Think about it. Knowing when your lesson is, recognizing the horses in the barn, understanding how things are done. All of these small things add up to a sense of stability. Horses experience this too. When horses move to a new home, one of the best things an owner could do is create consistency. Feeding at the same times, keep a regular training schedule, or using clear, consistent cues. These routines help the horse rebuild trust in their environment, and interestingly, the same strategies work for us. Creating small routines, no matter how simple, can make a new place feel so much more manageable. Now, here's one of the most powerful parts of this conversation. Horses don't just experience change, they can actually help us cope with it. Spending time with animals has been shown to reduce stress hormones like cortisol and increase hormones associated with calmness and connections such as oxytocin. In simpler terms, being around horses can literally help our brains feel more relaxed. But it goes beyond biology. Horses teach us patience. When you're working with a horse that is adjusting to a new environment, you can't rush the process. You have to slow down. You have to observe. You have to listen. And in doing that, something interesting happens. When we start treating ourselves with the same patience, we begin to accept that it's okay not to have everything figured out immediately. It's okay to feel unsure. Progress takes time. Horses are also keep us present. They don't think about yesterday or tomorrow, they respond to what's happening right now. And when you're with your horse, you're encouraged to do the same. That presence can be incredibly grounding, especially during times of change. In a way, the relationship becomes mutual as we help horses feel safe in a new environment. They help us feel calm and steady in ours. Change is really easy for humans or for horses. Moving countries, meeting new horses, and learning new ways of riding can feel challenging at first. It can test your confidence and push you out of your comfort zone. But with time, patience, and understanding, both riders and horses adapt. And often, those unfamiliar experiences are the ones that teach us the most, not just about riding, but about trust, resilience, and connection. So if you're in the middle of a transition right now, remind yourself it's okay to feel uncomfortable. That's part of the process. Thank you so much for listening to episode 7. I hope today's episode gave you a new perspective on how change affects both horses and humans. And as always, I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!